Elon Musk and Donald Trump posed as homeless people to test their followers' loyalty. Part 1. The challenge begins. What happens when two of the world's most influential men, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, decide to ditch their lavish lifestyles and pose as homeless people for a month? What would their loyal followers do when they don't recognize them? Would they extend a hand or turn away? You won't believe what they learned about loyalty, wealth, and human nature. In a world dominated by fame and fortune, where every move made by billionaires is under scrutiny, Elon Musk and Donald Trump were no strangers to the spotlight. Musk, the genius entrepreneur behind Tesla and SpaceX, had revolutionized the tech world. Trump, the former president, real estate mogul, and television personality, was larger than life. His face plastered everywhere, from billboards to social media. Both men were not only wealthy, but also wielded immense influence across the globe. But despite their wealth, power, and influence, they began to feel a disturbing void. They could walk into any room and be recognized immediately. Their lives were filled with luxury, the finest clothes, extravagant mansions, and private jets. But neither man had ever truly experienced life outside their bubble. They were curious. How would their lives change if they disappeared into the crowd and lived like the millions of people they often ignored? Both Musk and Trump, in their own ways, had been recipients of criticism for their vast fortunes and controversial actions. But they also commanded loyal followings, people who admired them, worshipped them, and lived by their every word. They both had fans who would do anything to help them, to serve them, to be a part of their world. But would their followers still recognize them if they were nothing more than an anonymous homeless person on the streets? And so, the challenge was born. A challenge that would test the loyalty, compassion, and humanity of the very people who followed them. Part 2. The disguise. Elon Musk's preparation. Elon Musk spent days preparing for his transformation. He shaved off his distinctive, carefully styled hair and grew a rugged stubble, abandoning his crisp suits for ragged clothes. He wanted to disappear. His Tesla team assisted in procuring a rundown set of clothes, and they found him a spot in a park near a busy street. There, Musk planned to sit on the sidewalk with a cardboard sign that read, "Will work for food." His first test was simple. Would his loyal fans still recognize him without his usual carefully crafted persona? Musk had the mind of a strategist, but his wealth had sheltered him from the harsh realities many people faced. This challenge would be unlike any other he had faced. Trump, too, began his transformation. He would not be caught on the streets with his signature orange-tinted tan and flamboyant suits. He shaved his hair to a short buzz and wore tattered, oversized clothes that looked like they had been worn by someone down on their luck. He adopted a grim expression and practiced an exaggerated, gruff voice. Everything about his persona would scream desperation. Trump also created a backstory. A former businessman who had fallen on hard times, no longer able to afford the life of luxury that once seemed so easy to him. The goal was simple. He wanted to see if anyone would help him when they didn't know who he was. They set out for different locations, Musk on the streets of Los Angeles and Trump in New York. Their paths would soon cross, but neither man knew how the experience would change them. Part 3. The first days as homeless people. Musk's experience. The first few days were tough for Musk. He sat on the sidewalk, his cardboard sign beside him, trying to blend in with the crowd. People walked past without even glancing at him. It was a stark reminder of just how invisible people can become when they have nothing. For the first time in his life, Musk felt the sting of rejection. His genius, his achievements, meant nothing here. People ignored him. It didn't matter that he was responsible for creating some of the most advanced technology in the world. In their eyes, he was just another homeless person, an outcast from society. As the days wore on, Musk began to experience what it felt like to be discarded by the very society he had helped to shape. He thought back to his employees, people who worked tirelessly to build his empire, and wondered if they would ever show him this level of humanity if they knew he were truly in need. On the 5th day, a young man approached him. He hesitated at first, looking Musk up and down. The young man had a rugged appearance, and there was a look of disbelief in his eyes. Finally, he spoke. "Hey man, you look like Elon Musk," the young man said. eyes widening. Musk was taken aback. He hadn't expected anyone to recognize him, but the young man was firm in his belief. "You're the Tesla guy, right? I've been following your work for years," the young man continued, his voice almost trembling. Musk couldn't help but smile faintly. For a moment, he considered telling the young man the truth, but then he thought better of it. Instead, he nodded, accepting the stranger's offer of food. Part 4. Trump's Experience. Trump on the streets. Trump, meanwhile, was in the heart of New York City. He had set up near a popular tourist spot, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. Most people ignored him. He asked for food, he asked for change, but the responses were cold. Some people didn't even acknowledge his existence. A middle-aged man who looked like he'd fallen on hard times himself paused in front of Trump. The man looked at him with curiosity, studying his face. Trump held his breath, wondering if the man would recognize him. "Wait a minute," the man said. "Are you Donald Trump?" Trump swallowed hard, trying to play it cool. No, I'm just a businessman who's fallen on tough times," he replied, his voice rough and deep. But the man wasn't convinced. He stared at Trump for several seconds, before finally shaking his head in disbelief. "No, I'm sure it's you. You were on TV, right? You're Trump." Trump let out a sigh. The man's suspicion was growing, but so was Trump's sense of awe. "Okay, fine," he admitted. "I'm Donald Trump." The man stepped back in shock. I knew it was you." Trump was taken aback. His whole plan had been to stay under the radar, but it seemed that his fame had followed him even into the streets. The man quickly pulled out his phone and started recording. Trump's face appeared on the screen, and within minutes, a crowd started gathering. Part 5. The results of the experiment. Musk and Trump's reflections. Both Musk and Trump were faced with an uncomfortable truth. For all their fame and fortune, they had never experienced what it was like to live without recognition, without power. They had been shielded from the harshest realities of life, and this experiment had given them insight into just how quickly people could be forgotten once they were no longer useful. But there were moments of humanity that they hadn't expected. A woman in a tattered dress handed Musk a bottle of water one day and sat beside him for several minutes, speaking to him as if he were a human being and not an outcast. In contrast, Trump found himself facing a different set of challenges. His interactions with people were often met with disbelief, ridicule, or scorn. But there were a few moments when he truly felt connected to people who were struggling, who saw him not as a symbol of wealth, but as someone they could relate to. Part 6. The Reveal. After a month, both Musk and Trump decided to reveal their true identities. They sat down in front of a camera and shared their experiences. Musk spoke about how the experiment had changed him, how it made him see the world in a different light. He acknowledged that while he had always been about innovation and technology, there was something much more fundamental about the way people treated each other. Trump's reflection was similar. He spoke about how the experience had humbled him and how he had come to see the world differently. His followers reacted with shock, admiration, and some even frustration. Some felt it was a grand stunt, a publicity move. But for Musk and Trump, it was more than that. It was a wake-up call. What do you learn from this story? Tell us in the comments, and goodbye.